400,000 people have recently left New York during the pandemic, and New York's tax base is down 70%. Even if its tax base was down 20%, that'd be enough for it to be ruinous. Now, yes, some of these people and the tax base would come back eventually, but because of the rise in work from home, changes made possible by progress in technology hastened by the pandemic, a large number of people no longer have to live and work in a specific location. So they no longer have to live in a particular place because that's where their jobs are. Not to mention some portion of the people who have more of a conventional job can still relocate their physical office to a new location if they set up roots there. So a large portion of the people in the tax base is never coming back, and this could be completely ruinous for New York City. So I have this article up from a hill talking about issues that New York is going to go through. Because if you're familiar with New York's history, the city completely atrophied during the 70s. What happened is that a lot of economic activity and high income, upper middle class, people relocate to the suburbs, dramatically reducing the city's tax base because of white flight, and that began a downward spiral of deteriorating services, leading to deteriorating property values and just hastening the exodus of anybody with more income and means, further reducing the tax base. So the city was probably also suffering from bad policy decisions and their consequences at the time. And of course, there was just a general uptick in crime during that period, which just accelerated all these problems and further hastened the exodus of the tax base and people with income from the city, leaving it just full of poverty, unable to maintain its own upkeep. Of course, New York City never experienced white flight as badly as perhaps other cities in the country, and still it suffered a humongous just decline in everything. So, for example, the whole southern half of Brooklyn and the core of Manhattan, south of 96th Street, and the whole of Queens never really experienced white flight in the sense of a complete replacement of the pre-existing community with a more fragile community. So that's like over half the city. So anyway, as I might have said before, I have this article from the Hill and I'm going to read it. New York City will turn into shell of former self after coronavirus crisis. The Hill. Imagine New York City 5 years from now, with streets full of abandoned storefronts, closed eateries, and empty buildings. The cumulative effects of the coronavirus may be more overwhelming than other challenges New York City has to face during the past 2 generations, including 9/11. Yes, because the coronavirus is a sustained structural change that's taking place over years, while 9/11, though traumatic and tragic, was just a one-off blip, and people realized that after a few months. It's likely that the pandemic will simply accelerate the trend in a sharp decline of its population and livelihoods. NYC was already losing population before the outbreak due to economic factors and quality of life issues. Around 40,000 residents left between 2017 and 2018 alone. The coronavirus has fueled the population outflow. About 420,000 residents fled New York City in the last few months. And because of the rise of work from home, and the fact that people who have set roots in different places can physically relocate their offices, a lot of those people are just not coming back to the state. Even worse for its economy, the majority of those who left are amid the pandemic are wealthy workers. Many of them went to low-tax havens in the South, such as Texas, Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. Eventually, it will not be the 1% who leave, though 400,000 is more like the 5%, if there is a one-to-one correlation between income and people who left, which there isn't exactly, but it's probably still a strong correlation and overlap. The unemployment rate in New York City has risen above 14%. Yeah, that's probably just the tip of the iceberg, because after another month of data, the unemployment rate will probably rise substantially above that. Residents without a job or reduced hours will no longer have the income to keep paying sky-high rents for living in tiny quarters. Meanwhile, workers who have not been laid off or furloughed have been working remotely, a trend that may continue for years to come. Nearly 70% of those in finance and technology will consider relocating if working remotely becomes permanently. I don't see why it won't in the majority of cases if it's been working for the companies for the past 3 months and they're already used to doing things this way. Why would they go back for a majority of cases? For many, that is already an option. Twitter and Facebook announced that employees will get to work from home on a permanent basis, a move that other technology giants are also weighing. Meanwhile, the conveniences of city living before the outbreak are no longer relevant. The coronavirus has exposed how easy telecommuting is, and residents may not feel safe riding a subway again for months. Small luxuries like dining out may be off the table, even when restaurants are allowed to reopen. A wave of bars and restaurants have also closed for good in New York City. The pressure of fewer customers, and knowing that laid-off employees will receive $600 per week unemployment bonuses, make the decision to move more of a no-brainer than before. Several retail establishments were already struggling due to the competing online business and exorbitant commercial rents. The coronavirus will push New York City to face a period of empty storefronts for the first time in decades. Yeah, because of your rents already sky-high, meaning you really do have to pass those costs on to consumers, and then online retail, which doesn't have those online rents, comes along and doesn't even have any rents in general and competes with them with lower prices, it's a no-brainer that you're going to really take a huge hit from this. The mass of young people that move to New York City for its culture and opportunity will see them dry up. Without all the restaurants and crowds of young people, the social scene and nightlife will certainly be subdued. The end result will be the Big Apple without its core. Minus the hot culture and thriving business sector, what is the advantage of deciding to stay in a potential germ factory like the Five Boroughs? Collapsing tax revenue for the decline in both business and residents will mean that many major programs and projects, from infrastructure, yes, the New York City subways is completely underfunded and is already decaying, and they are already having a huge amount of trouble coming up with funding to fix the system, which is essential for the function of the city. Before this crisis, now that revenue is down by up to 70%, it's just so much worse than before. Not to mention, the housing projects also was seriously underfunded. It had huge issues like just decay, poor upkeep, and lead paint. And the issue with maintaining buildings is that if you let the maintenance slip even a little, then leaks go unchecked, cause additional water damage, which causes decay and dry rot. So allowing a little decay to happen then just breaks the seals of the building and allows small amounts of damage, like leaks, to build up higher amounts of damage, like water. So it just compounds on each other. So the housing projects are like already completely decaying, and the city was like out of money to properly fix them before. So after this, because a lot of the state tax revenue comes from the city, and the state's going to be hit as well, the state won't be in a position to really help the city, even if they wanted to. Collapsing tax revenue from decline in both business and residents will mean that many major programs and projects, from infrastructure to public safety and more, will be either bailed out by Uncle Sam or slashed by the government. This will likely not just be an issue for New York City. Similar factors will cause other urban centers to see similar flights. In San Francisco, the need for cubicles is gone. A majority of technology employees said they will leave the Bay Area if they could telecommute. Even hubs like Chicago will feel the economic pain. Developers are axing the number of projects in the Windy City at a time when the surrounding states are looking more attractive. While Illinois seeks a federal bailout, its neighborhoods are starting to reopen for business. The difficulties of those urban centers face are daunting, but New York City also has the misfortune of being the coronavirus epicenter. The pandemic, high tax rates, soaring living costs, and the bandwagon effect may end up bringing the Big Apple back to the battle days of the early 70s. Yes, because a lot of business is located there, because a lot of other business is located there, so like its suppliers and business partners it relies on, and skilled employees are there, which makes it reasonable to set up. If a critical mass of those things leave, then the business no longer has the partners and suppliers and labor it needs to function, so even if they want to stay, they're forced to leave because they no longer have the support needed to function, because the critical mass of their supporting and cooperating business has already left. That's called agglomeration effects if you want to get into technical economics. So this could really lead to a cascading snowball effect. If a critical mass of movement happens, which it very well might because of the huge impotence, because of the pandemic already causing a huge exodus from the city, and work from home changing the nature of work and people's need to locate in certain areas. So this could cause a very, very big shift that could lead to a critical mass of change leaving, causing an out-of-control downward spiral, which would be exacerbated and hastened by the declining tax revenue problems New York City is going to face, damaging the upkeep of critical infrastructure and other services. Anyone stepping into this leadership vacuum has to first come to grips with how daunting the challenge really is. So New York City is facing a huge mess. And if this situation isn't handled perfectly, New York might be forced into a downward spiral that just goes completely out of control. So that would be very interesting to see. So that's it for the video. If you like this content, please share this video with anyone else you can think of. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments section. And go to my channel page for more content.